So, good morning, Kristen.
Good morning. I have Amanda with me too. Hello.
Hi, Amanda, how are you?
Good.
Great, great, great. So how are the roads out where you all are?
Not that great. We're here. How about in the cities?
Well, listen, look, the challenge is just getting out of my garage, okay? It's like I can't even get to the street yet because
Yes.
alleys haven't been plowed and it's just a nightmare.
Is school back on there today?
You know, I don't know. I missed the announcement. I don't see evidence that I don't know. Let me just not even speculate. I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's back. They're back in school today. Hi.
Okay.
Hey, Richard.
Hi.
They haven't gotten, all I can tell you is that they haven't gotten to the alleys yet. And so there's several of us who are trapped.
Yes. There's a lot of snow to move.
Yes, yes, yes. This is true. This is true. Well, we're going to have a couple of people are out that are not going to be able to make it because they are testifying at the Capitol for the bill for home visiting, which is really a wonderful thing. There's a lot of interest and a lot of hopefulness that will generate some additional resources that'll make it through the cut. So I know Nidra and Maya are testifying, and I know also Chandra is going to be delayed a bit. She's hoping to get here, that she won't miss it, but that she's going to be late. So maybe, I don't know, we should get started with I think we can start just kind of maybe checking in a bit. So, more snow. More snow. So let's rise above the snow. Let's like put that aside and think about something you're looking forward to. It can be anything. So, what are you looking forward to in the next, let's say, couple of weeks?
Couple.
Yeah.
I unmute us.
So, who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay, good morning.
Show off on Live Track. I'm looking forward to, I want to say more sun, but I guess more of taking care of myself.
Oh, that is a wonderful thing to look forward to.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stuart.
Sure. I can go next. I'm Leah. I am the AmeriCorps Vista at Life Track through Mayor Carter's office. And I have a German class tonight, so I'm really excited to go to German class. Yeah.
Are you just starting, or
I am just starting. I thought it would be fun, so yes. I started last week, and today is my second class. I'm very excited about it.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'm Kristen from Lakes and Prairies Head Start in Moorhead. And I am looking forward to getting outside and walking my dog when this cold weather goes away, because her little paws freeze when I take her out and she disappears in the snow because she's tiny. So looking forward to being able to have clear sidewalks with no ice.
So she's a little one, huh?
She is.
Oh, that's cute.
I'm Amanda, also with Lakes and Prairies Head Start, and I have a wedding in Las Vegas next month. So looking forward to that. Nicer weather there.
Great. Plenty of sunshine in Las Vegas. That's
Yes.
a really great thing to look forward to.
Yes.
So, Richard. Richard?
What? Yeah. All right, I'm looking forward to a long theater weekend, going to history theaters to see Stewardess Friday, going to Penumbra on Saturday, and going to see Falsettos on Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
So I hope we don't get snowed in again.
Oh,
I got
wow.
a ticket.
That's a play a day, isn't it? That's great.
You know why? Because my wife is crazy. But it's all good crazy.
Sounds like fun to me.
Insatiable. Theater, insatiable with regard to theater, yep.
So let's see. I'm looking forward to going to see a play. There's this theater company called 10,000 Things, and I love what they do because they don't use a stage. They mount these plays in very different venues. So auditoriums, they go to prisons, they go to homeless shelters, they just go all over the place to show people these wonderful productions. And so all of their sets and costumes and stuff have to fit into a few suitcases. And it's really wonderful to see how they do this. And it's always just a lot of fun with audience commentary in the process.
Yeah, and they're doing Into the Woods, which is very ambitious.
Well, I can hardly wait to see what happens.
You got tickets to that too.
True. So maybe we should just go. I'm going to put, well, first, does everybody have the report in front of them, or I can put it on the screen as well? Does everybody have the report?
If you could put it on the screen, that would be great.
Okay. Everybody see that? Is everybody seeing the report on the screen? Y'all are muted, so I can't tell what you're saying. If you can see the report on the screen, nod your head. Oh, good. Okay, thanks. Okay, Richard is going to walk us through the report, and then we'll be able to probe, go deeper into it. So, Richard, I'm just going to turn this over to you.
Okay, thanks. So hopefully you've all had a chance to see the basic results, the frequencies for each of your particular surveys with parents and staff. So this report aggregates the results from the 5 sites for Lakes and Prairies, Life Track, Southside Family, the YWCA, Mankato, and Simpson. The 67 parent surveys that were completed and the surveys from 40 program staff across those 5 programs. And then it just, it pulls together, your report has the demographics of the people who completed it. This combines those into the overall group, and we got a pretty good cross-section. As typical, also for our, we've used these tools with child care centers and family child care. It's primarily mothers who complete them, but we got 4 fathers who completed them. A wide range of ages, from teenager up to just under age 60. Pretty diverse group of people with fairly even numbers of Latinos and African Americans. Or then you can see also diverse with regard to immigration status, where half have had recent, mostly first-generation immigrants or refugees. And then it's probably based upon the eligibility, it's primarily lower-income households. Then you see, in terms of which of the staff participated, about half self-identified as family support workers. Just over a quarter were some sort of administrator or manager. About a quarter were identified as teachers, assistant teachers, or educators. And then mostly full-time employees with, here we get few more males completed, so we've got 88% female. And then again, diverse staff, you can see the proportions there. So it's, I think and then quite a few newer employees, newer staff, with 2/3 roughly being there for 2 years or less, but also a smattering of longer-term employees. So I think in terms of the pilot, this is good that it's a really good range of types of programs, types of and characteristics of families and staff who participated. So any questions about that so far?
Okay.
So then you see the next 2 pages just mimics the survey tool and provides the percentages who responded in each of the categories, from a lot, somewhat, a little, to not at all, and then the average across the whether it's 67 parents or 40 staff. And what we look for in terms of interpreting these results is that anything for the first 10 questions on the parent survey, the average closer to 1 is considered to be a strength. And the higher you get up towards 3 or 4, it's considered to be something to be concerned about or considered to be something to address. And then really anything under 2 is considered pretty good. And then if it gets to be over, between 2, above 2.5, closer to 3, again, it's think about what we might do about it. And you can see on these results that what stands out on the right-hand column is that the higher averages for the first set of questions around family, about social support and social networks, all are above 2, closer to 3. And if you look at items 4 through 10, you can see those are below 2, closer to 1. So the ideas of transmitting moral and cultural values, those tend to be pretty strong on the parent side. And the last 4 items with regard to support for identity and sort of concerns about supporting that both in the program and in general, those are the higher the better, because we want that to be not at all concerned. And but we also look to see what's the proportion of reporting a lot or not at all for each of these. And you can see there's the last item stands out as the lowest proportion. So the average is 2.2, and you got 2/3 who are a lot or somewhat feel the need in general to take those steps about supporting their child's sort of pride in their identity. The thing we look for in these pilots and I just remember with the first group we looked at it, I was worried that, oh no, it's all going to be solidly one answer for all the items, and there'll be no range of responses. But you can see here, there's quite a range of responses for all the items. There's nothing at 100%. There's some that are pretty high, like before, about character development, but sort of the range of responses and from a lot to not at all shows that people have it's tapping into sort of honest responses and can give us a good sense of what parents are feeling. So then the same thing with regard to the staff responses, same interpretation, closer to 1 for all of these is better. And you can see that the staff provide a similar to the families, very high with regard to building character, all under 2, closer to 1 for the first 2 items. Programs staff also positive responses with regard to the importance of helping that child develop a sense of self, those items of 5 through 9. And then also everything sort of under 2 with regards to understanding and valuing community. So while there's nothing that's universal, there's still fairly strong staff opinions about the sort of the quality and the strength of their program with regard to working with families. And then last, the discussion section. This is where we look at, again, we look at the averages and the proportions on the ends of either a lot or not at all, and compare some of the questions that are similar in both the parent survey and the staff survey, and look to see what are signs of clear strengths and what issues the coalition could work on as concerns. And you can see a lot of clear strengths that can be used. I mean, this information, I think, as we talk about how it can be used, it can be used to talk about how some of the clear strengths of that are part of the targeted home visiting coalition with regard to transmitting character and values, both the support from the staff and the parents. Well, I think Betty probably will find this surprising. We found these to be lower among child care professionals, but both parents and staff feel that the advice they're receiving from professionals support their own knowledge, experience, and values. So that's a good thing within the coalition. Another area that's really has been an issue within several child care programs, in early learning programs, but not is a sign of strength here about that feeling invited and feeling open to talking about the positive skills and abilities that children demonstrate at home that they may not know about without talking to the families about them. Again, strong connections to services and events and resources, community-based organizations, culturally supportive organizations, connecting families with those. Staff report those to be a clear strength. And then also something that usually stands out as something to work on, but staff seem to think it's not an issue with regard to changing program rules and so on with regard to based on family feedback. The 2 areas that do stand out from both the staff survey and the parent survey, which is not surprising, which is an issue of why many families, would benefit from home visiting, is that isolation, potential for isolation, reporting of little extended family support and connections. So something that's associated with child maltreatment, that isolation. So thinking about what can be done to strengthen that capacity within those families and communities. And then that issue around, within general, about the need to take extra steps about teaching their child about being proud of their identity, and how can home visiting programs and children, help families and children protect themselves and support them in addressing those concerns would be an important issue. And I think that's part of the key part of making sure that all the programs focus on diversity and inclusion and that sort of thing. All right, so that's the overview. I guess any questions about that, and thinking about how it might apply to you. You're the only one who knows how your program, where your program stands with regard to this general overview, but probably it's pretty consistent because of the averages you're including the averages. So if there's areas where you differ with regard to those averages, that's somewhere for you to think about how, where you might have other concerns that emerge. I'll stop there and open it up for questions and comments.
Surprises?
Not surprises, but this is Kristen with Lakes and Prairies. But just struck by when we had our parent focus group and went over the results, how the limited extended family member support and connections really struck a chord with them and really launched us into another conversation about trust and, you know, trusting people and having others like they trust to watch their kids, childcare or informal or any of those things, and how that really keeps families from being able to go to work and having conversations about how trust and some of those issues or not having support keeps them from economic empowerment. And so we had a really great discussion about that. And we're then able to follow it up just this Tuesday with that same group and offer them, we had different resources from childcare where different speakers come and talk about that there are things in place with childcares that would help maybe strengthen your trust in them, that they have rules and some of those things. And so we had a really good discussion about finding new connections so that families can make changes that they need to for their own economic stability. And it's tiring not having anybody that you can trust and not having someone that you can lean on when you need it. And so really looking for ways that we can support families in understanding who they can trust and connect them to those people.
So that's great that it sparked a conversation that you might not have had otherwise, and you actually put this to use right away. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really surprising to us that we had a group of about 15, 20 families there, and not one of them used any kind of childcare or had any family that they could trust. And so it was a really good chance to have a really rich conversation about that.
Wow.
Great.
That's amazing. You know, when we first created these, started using these tools, and when this issue of lack of extended family support and connections kept showing up, I kept thinking, you know, people are going to get upset that that's showing up in these. But then it turns out that what it did was it validated the tools, because it really did reflect how families were isolated, and this actually got them to talk and find solutions like you did. So it was the opposite of what I was worried about. It actually sparked conversations that helped them overcome that lack of support. So again, it's another example of how these tools can actually spark those conversations and lead to those, improving people's lives. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what really struck me too was the high level of confidence that that the parents had in the programs. I mean, y'all got really strong high marks on the level of people trusting the information and also that feeling invited to talk about their children. And so all of that spoke to the quality of relationship between individuals in the program and the parents that you're seeing. So that was great to see that showing up in the data.
This is Julie with Southside Family Nurturing Center, and I'm just kind of stepping in a little bit today as Jenny needed to be out. I just had a few questions as I looked at the results, and specifically one of the I think it's number 9, or I'm sorry, It's in the third section when it's asking parents to reflect on needing to supplement the messages, the cultural messages that their children are getting. I can't see it on the screen right now, I'm sorry.
Please scroll up.
There it is, 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, I wouldn't necessarily interpret that as a negative, that parents would also take additional steps beyond what a child might get in a home visiting program or an early childhood education program to teach their child about their cultural, ethnic, social, or gender group identity. And I think, and the way I'm looking at sort of the interpretation of the results was that perhaps that was an area that we would have concern about.
Yeah, so in terms of the I don't know if you're part of the training or the administration, but this distinguishes the 4 questions. There's 2 questions about filling that about about the home visiting program itself versus outside in general in the community or in society. So 14 is not about the program per se, it's about in general. So it's something that the program could help them with outside the program or extend what they're doing, but it's not really speaking about the program, it's speaking about in general.
Would that be, okay. So it's not saying, are they doing it, though? It's saying they feel a need to.
Right.
Yeah, I understand it's not about the program. I think it's a strength of parents to be able to say, I also take those extra steps to do that. And that's how I would, I'm just wondering if that's what's reflected in 14.
Well, you know, that's, I think, also part of the importance of those conversations with parents. Is that's where you can probe to find out, what does this mean? Like, these just show the numbers, but in terms of context and what does that mean for the parents in the conversations when you're unpacking the report and the data with the parents, then asking, what does that mean? What does that look like for you? Can give you more information. Because for some, I mean, because we've seen answers all over the place with these questions. Like, sometimes people can feel the need in general, but say in 14 to take extra steps, you know, they feel that very strongly. But in question 13, in a particular in that program, I'm sorry, in 12, in the program, they don't feel the need to take extra steps. In some programs, it's the opposite. It flips. People feel the need to take extra steps in that program, but not in society in general. Again, depending upon their context, depending upon the community they live in. You know, so all of these things are ways of unpacking this information. Those dialogues are important in terms of understanding, what does this mean? How can this data be used? So looking at that and looking at, you know, some of the demographic data can give you a kind of picture of who's having what kind of experience.
Thank you. I think that's helpful as we move forward with this from the pilot to a larger implementation, that we talk about it not so much as what might be how to follow up on some of those things, what that might mean if it's showing high or low in response to, say, 14. At an individual level and at a program level, probably not composite of programs. Is that right?
This is Fatima. I'm at Southside. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm at Southside Nurturing Center too. And one of the things that brought up good conversations for our families was 12, 13, and 14. And we also had a lot of discussion about isolation as well, and how families don't feel like they can trust other people, or family turns out to be people that are their neighbors, and how they get have a close circle. But isolation and the cultural component was our biggest conversations, and it led to other conversations that I thought was really, really important. And they felt that the program represented they felt comfortable in the program, but they didn't know how to, engage with the rest of the world kind of thing, and they're teaching their children, but having a strong ethnic, maybe cultural, how important it is. We were reiterating that that's important. And that's really good conversations with parents, and how they, if they speak Spanish in the home or Somali, continue to do that. If they have things that they do, continue to have these discussions with their children. And I think 12, 13, and 14 really led to really good discussions with parents, and led to other things about their cultural backgrounds and what's important to them and how they view the program, and even just their neighborhoods and other schools.
One of the things we always look forward to is those kinds of conversations, because it's a place, generally, and when you can have this kind of conversation supported by data that you can actually build on in your program, at the practitioners level, and also within the program planning level, as well as, at the policy level, that, this can be useful. Any other things that stood out for you all in your conversations? Even with, each other with the data when you all were inputting it.
For us, the only thing that we found out is, we kind of already knew as individuals for the families, but we did it as a group, and for families to find out that they're not the only ones struggling with isolation, or that they're not the only ones, finding themselves being out in the community on their own. It was kind of a good discussion to have, to see other families or other parents going through the same thing. So it led to really long conversations, like the other group said already, but it was really interesting for them to see that they're not the only ones.
Yeah. So it's interesting how, there are different ways that the tools have been administered. And so when you're administering them to a group, it's a very different dynamic and an opportunity to have those conversations, which is different from administering it one-on-one. And there are different things that you can learn from each way. So it's nice to hear how those different ways of administering the tools played out, and what you learn from each way, each process. Other thoughts?
This is Julie Ellison again. I have a question. I think, Richard, you mentioned earlier that the similar tool had been used in early childhood education, and you'd seen some differences in its use on the home visiting versus early childhood ed responses.
Yep.
I'd like to hear more about that, if you just where you see more of those differences. In our situation, we are a combined program, and so it's not exclusive to home visiting. And I don't know if that's the case for any other of the pilot sites.
Well, the two that stand out to me, and Betty can talk about this too, are the on the discussion side, the third bullet. That's often either not consistent, either one or other, or both parents or staff or both don't feel like that opportunity is there. And then the last bullet, where where there's the ability to actually put feedback to use to change program rules and requirements. They often feel like they're trapped in by some rules and requirements that they can't change. Those two are the ones that stand out to me as key areas that are different.
Yeah, there seems to
The
be.
isolation has been an issue virtually in every program that we worked with.
Okay.
There seems to be a more bureaucracy surrounding early ed than, so they have less flexibility than home visiting programs do in terms of changing program rules and requirements. And also responding to, like, when parents talk about positive skills and abilities, how to respond to that, you know, or how to make space for that.
Okay, maybe just less of that happening, that exchange with parents.
Or that there are more barriers, because it seems like for example, they may be locked into a process that says, you know, certain things have to happen at certain times. It may be driven by, you know, grant requirements or certification requirements or quality. I mean, who knows where the imperative comes from, but there seems to be more of that in early education that people feel bound by.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other area is actually that where staff feel that the advice and training and development they get from professionals supports their own knowledge, experience, and values. That seems to be more of a rub among early care and education providers.
Yeah, that they feel like they don't have as much leeway to use their own knowledge and experience, or to have that recognized. One thing
Right.
I'm curious about, you know, examples of how you all are able to, examples of changing rules and requirements and strategies in response to what you all learn from families and communities. I think that's such a wealth of information that can really positively impact programs and the field. What are some examples what of things that you all do?
Sorry, Betty, can you repeat the question?
I'm looking at the 5th bullet point under the discussion. Staff reports changing program rules, requirements, and strategies in response to what is learned from families and communities. And I was just looking at what are some examples of that, because that's pretty exciting, because that can have, that's such an opportunity for learning within the field.
And some of the things that we survey parents.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Your voice just faded out.
Okay. We survey families to learn about what kind of availability they have, what their interests are, and then have a calendar based on that. It's just a simple thing. Another thing we've done is provide trainings in other languages. Like we do Incredible Years several times, Incredible Years parent group several times a year. And so we recently offered a Kurdish language speaking Incredible Years group. So just adapting based on real-time data about families.
what other kinds of observations did this spark for you all? Just even in conversations with yourselves, because I know that you know, some people administered this in groups, some people did it one-on-one, and now you're going to look forward to sharing this information, you know, with the programs and the parents, and having a conversation about the results. And I'm just curious about other kinds of observations that you all might have made.
I think for me, this is Fatima again. I think it's the same one that I already mentioned. Because we administrated as a group,
Mhm.
the timid families, the ones who didn't say much, were saying a lot and sharing more and opening up once they found out they weren't the only families feeling the way they were feeling in terms of isolation, or not connected to the community, or just their concerns were shared with other families. It just opened up, like, it was kind of, it lasted longer than we thought. And it was really interesting to watch how open they were to share with each other, actually. And to say, hey, I feel this way, or just kind of share whatever they do. If like a certain family does something, they were sharing if they found it to be helpful to other families. So I think for me, what I was surprised by is how open and they were, even the ones who don't usually say much, and just sharing information to find out that they weren't the only ones. Kind of really was a good discussion.
How does the fourth bullet point, partnering with culturally supportive community-based organizations to deliver services and connect families to events and resources. What does that look like? I mean, give me some examples of that. How does that play out? Because that was certainly a strength that showed up on both the parent and the staff side.
What was the question, Betty? Can you repeat it?
It's the fourth bullet point under discussion. I'm just curious about how does that show up in your programs? Like, what does that look like? Because that was something that both staff and parents reported strengths that you all had in that.
Are you talking about the one that says parents and staff feel that they have opportunity to talk about positive skills and abilities?
Well, I was thinking that that fourth bullet point related more to ways that you all connect. Let me shift back to the tool. Okay, like in the second section of the staff tool, questions like 5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
That you all are connecting people with resources in different ways, and that showed up as a strength.
I think for me, the only thing I can think about is families knew, or I guess they figured out that we are partnering with them, that they're not alone, but also we're partnering with them to see how they can also engage in developing the kind of homes that they want. So we're not really going out there to say, we're home visitors. Yes, we're here to help them with their children and their, parents as educators, but for them to also be see us as partners with them, that they can influence their home visits, and they can also influence the kind of information that they receive and the resources they get connected to. So that's the perspective that I got from, I don't know if that makes sense at all, but just for them to even see that from staff and learn you are here to partner with them and their input is very important. It's really what, at the end of that discussion is what I got from that.
There are no right or wrong answers. I'm just looking at the data and trying to, I'm looking at these strengths that you all have. And I'm just,
Okay.
It's kind of like an opportunity to reflect on the things that you all are doing that are working well. So it's like, how to tell that story with the data. And a lot of times, when you're working in situations that require a lot of energy and that are really, really intense, it's challenging sometimes to step back and notice the things that you are doing that are really working well. The things that you're doing right, because you get so accustomed to what is the next thing, what is the next problem I have to solve. And so this is just a way of saying, oh, look at all these, these are pretty wonderful stats that showed up. So, what does that look like on the ground? What is it that we're doing that, led to these kinds of responses?
So, Betty, I just want to say something that I think for me during home visits, I work with a lot of single moms, and so it's hard for them to see how they can be a family. So when I go in, I remind them of they're creating their own family. They don't need, to have a father figure sometimes, but mom is there and kids are there, and so they create their own family and just teaching them simple things as having family time and just doing things together. So I think for that culture base, it's more of the family culture, being family and really teaching them just the simple things that what the community has for single moms, what the community have for the kids that are struggling. There's things like that that are available, and just be able to connect those resources with them. So that's what I see, and it's amazing. It's kind of funny now to have a family that has a mom and dad, because you're not used to that. You're so used to having one single parent only. So yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, I wondered how did that play out? So that's great. That's great. So you all are like bringing information in about how people can connect easily to resources that are meaningful to them. And you're lifting up the things that they could do that would make sense to them. That's great.
This is Julie. I could think of maybe 3 kind of areas of how we have partnered to bring more support, culturally appropriate support to families. First, I think internally as an organization, I think we're all doing it, but really trying to make sure that our staff reflect the community that we're serving. And so that there's some cultural connection or presence within our program that feels safe and supportive. Like initially, I think being able to provide services, whether they're in-house or when we refer out, that they're language specific in people's first language, if at all possible. Certainly that's not always possible, but trying to make sure that people are able to advocate for themselves to the best that they can. I think in our programming for around family events this year, we got a lot of feedback from families that they liked drumming and dancing event that we had last year. So this year we sought out funding to do drumming and dancing across 3 continents, and those are the 3 sort of larger cultural groups that we serve at Southside. So I think we have like 15 sessions of drumming and dancing with 5 sessions with 3 different artists. But so really integrating, whether we're accessing resources internally or programming or out in the community of trying to identify, again, based on what families are saying their priority areas are, that just connecting. It obviously varies for every family.
So was there anything in the data that surprised you guys? I'm just gonna scroll slowly up the tools to pick your memories.
Everyone's still there?
People are really quiet.
Let me ask a different question. It sounds like through the several examples that it could be possible to say that by being part of this pilot, you actually had conversations with the people that are part of your program that you've never had before and probably would not have had with if you hadn't been part of this process. True or false? Sort of true, sort of false.
True, I would say true. Yeah.
That's exactly what we're hoping to accomplish, so thank you.
No problem.
Well, also have conversations with each other as staff that you wouldn't have had before, that are different from conversations you've had before.
We have at the Subcommittee had some really good conversations about.
Your voice is breaking up. I can't hear.
We have really good conversations about social capital and how important that is.
Can you talk a little bit louder? I can't hear it all.
Yeah, Kristen, I don't know if you can move your mic closer or because it sounds a little garbled on our end.
Okay. There it is. Computer, but we had conversations about social capital and how we as staff set up things for families to build that through relationships with each other.
That was hard to hear. Kristen, if you could type it into the chat, just to confirm, I heard the word social capital, but I didn't hear anything else around that.
Do we have to do anything to enable the chat, Tunde?
No. Just go like on the large screen. You can just go to the chat button and type things out. I feel like Kristen has seen it. Yeah, she's seen it, so she's typing. You see it, Betty?
Yes, great, great, great. Wow, great. That is so important. I think understanding how, what I'm hearing you all describe are ways of making that social capital more visible to, and building it with the family. So that's really wonderful to be more mindful of what that looks like, both from the staff level and making, you know, families also more conscious of it, because it's like it's the thing that is so huge and is so it's like air, so it gets to be invisible, and you know, you only notice it when it's not there. So that's great. So Richard, is there any other information that we need, you know, moving forward, or how to think about this?
I don't think there's anything we need. I think the coalition is important to think about next steps.
Yeah, hi everybody. Sorry I'm late. I was coming from the Capitol. There was a hearing in relation to a bill for the coalition. I missed a good portion of everybody's share out. I don't want to make people do it again. Is there a general recap that I could be provided with as far as the feedback around using it and how it was helpful, not helpful, how it was utilized, wasn't utilized, etc.? Is there a summary that I can hear? I'm actually looking to you, Betty. You'd probably be the best. Yeah, I don't know if anyone could summarize how what everybody has said. So I don't know, Betty, if you can provide that.
I will. People were saying that it stimulated conversations that they had not had before with parents, and particularly when the tools were administered in a group, like the conversation that generated, and that, you know, parents were very open and forthcoming and seemed to be really pleased to know that they were not alone, you know, in some of the things that they were experiencing. And so that those conversations were very, very rich conversations. People also talked about ways that they were able to adapt program rules and regulations in response to what they were learning from families, and that was really good to see and to be able to reflect on, you know, to see some of the things that they were doing that were working well. There are a lot of strengths that showed up in the data about what was working well, and that families really felt, you know, invited to talk about the skills and abilities that their children had, and the ways in which at the staff level that they were connecting families to resources in their communities that were relevant to them, you know, that were culturally appropriate, that fit within the context of their lives, and that was a really really good thing, a really useful thing. We also talked a little bit about how some of the differences in the types of patterns of responses that we've been getting from childcare programs that are different from the responses that the data that we're seeing in the home visiting programs. And that there was a greater congruence for example, between in-home visiting programs about the kinds of professional development training that people were getting and their own experiences and observations. And we speculated a little about, what do those differences mean? With one thought being that, there may be less rigidity in the home visiting programs than there are for other programs that are more wired into particular, I don't know, I started to say standards, but that's not, there particular patterns or criteria or expectations that may not be culturally congruent. Is that a fair, now if I have botched that explanation, you guys, please don't let Tunde leave with my botched explanation. Please correct anything that I said.
Well, the other key thing that stands out is that I think it was Lakes and Pines talked about how they put the survey results to work immediately to help people understand. And they brought in resources to help them figure out how to build trust with people who could actually care for their children, because they were perhaps even unable to work because they had no one to care for their children, either formally or informally, which that conversation was sparked by the signs to which they had a lack of extended family support. So right away it was put to use to, I think it was even 20 parents in the room, I think. Is that what you said?
Kristen is nodding yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was remarkable.
Wow. Thank you. Again, sorry for that. And maybe I'll discuss this in January. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there either. How about administratively? Like, did it feel burdensome? Did it feel like you had to go out of your way in order to get this done? Did it feel, as far as like what the burden was for you all to administer and make it work, was it burdensome, et cetera? And I'm curious about that part too.
Actually, if you think about it more in terms of cost benefit, was the benefit worth that if there was trouble?
Yep.
Because there was a lot of benefit, I heard.
It wasn't any trouble giving the survey, but the language of the survey when asking them was kind of difficult, because of the population that we work with, low income. So some of the language, it was just like, what does that mean? So rephrasing it helped a lot, so the parents were able to understand the questions. So I think that's one thing that I noticed when giving out the survey to the parent.
Thanks, Shua. I saw Kristen. Thanks. Kristen said, everyone, that we appreciated learning new things about our families. There was not a burden. So thanks, Kristen. And then, they may have left. Julie, is Julie or Jennifer still on? They might have had to jump off. I'm not seeing them on this list. Okay. It might just be the two groups here. Thank Thank you for that. Because I think, you know, for the, as I'm surmising, but when we think about what does this look like if we just offer this up as a resource and tool for families, I'm sorry, for programs to utilize on their own, what does that look like? I think we have to be communicative and clear about what programs are committing to when they say they're going to do this work. And so I think we plan on having an evaluation later on, maybe probably next month at the end of the projects. But if there's anything else related to like support that you would have liked from us, or things that you found really helpful in orientation that you were able to apply during during training that you're able to apply, other pieces that you added on that you thought was helpful, either while you're administering or during that, when you're looking back at your data as a group with your families and things like that. Any learnings or any reflections related to that, the entire process, and did you feel prepared to do this when you were doing it? Did you have enough support? And then what are other supports that you could see could possibly be added or maybe helpful for other programs using this in the future? And I'm sorry, Shua and Kristen, you two are the only, you're the only one, your groups are the only left, so I'm looking to you all for some answers. Kristen may be typing right now, so.
Yeah, we had a couple of people who are testifying, Nidra and Maya testifying at the Capitol today, and Chandra was not able to come, so we're a little sparse in terms of the programs that could participate today.
Yeah, Shua, I saw your question. So I would say a succinct version of what I asked is, when you think about the entire process from beginning to end, right? The training that you all went through, the administration and support provided as you're doing that, and then sharing back with your families that information and having those conversations. What was that process like feasible? Was it helpful to you? Are there things that we could have done to better prepare you? Are there things that you added that you found helpful to include when you're doing the share out? What other pieces do we need to know so that when we roll this out to more programs, we have a more robust offering, I suppose. Yeah, Kirsten says the training list support to talk through the questions was really helpful. Great.
Right.
And Shu, I'm gonna let you think a little bit. I know I put you two on the spot.
Honestly, for me, I felt like it was something to do. It wasn't like a helpful tool. But as I went through the questions with my clients, the one that really stood out to me was they have no family support. It was mainly just community support. And when the community rejects them, they had nowhere else to go. So it was really an eye-opener for me. And I think that if we were to continue doing this, there may be a better way to approach parents and to explain to them the importance of the survey, and just having those personal discussions, sensitive discussion around the topics of the survey questions. And I think that the training was a little bit helpful. I was confused a lot because I think that it focused too much on positive stuff when most of our clients are experiencing a lot of negative, with the whole what homelessness and just basic needs and broken relationships. And so the survey is kind of like a last thing that they want to do, or think about. So I think that even doing a before and after survey with them when they finally achieve their goals, it might be helpful to see the difference, and that way, as home visitors, we are kind of helping them along the ways and achieving these survey questions. And that's all we want. We want them to be better when we close out their case, and for them to be confident in the questions that we ask them. Morals, I'm just reading some of the survey questions here, emphasizing having moral, spiritual code of conduct, like even I didn't even know what that means, but I try my best to explain to them. So, it's a learning curve, and I think we're all doing our best. So, yeah, I don't know if that made any sense there.
No, I appreciate that. I think that the idea of a before and after for this is really interesting to think about administering this towards the beginning of your relationship with the client, and then at the end as well, to see if there are any changes and through your work with them, whether any of these were able to be more supported or at least touched upon within your relationship with them. I think I'm hearing that from you. I'm also hearing that the language in this is still really difficult, and how it's a great, some of these things, it's like, how do I know what these are, let alone be able to explain it to somebody who is just trying to meet their basic needs right now? Like, teach positive character development. Like, oh, that's huge. Like, what? Even for anybody, whether you're a parent to, you could be the most well-off person, and like, teaching positive character development is literally like what parenting is in part, so how to continue to provide support to providers to be able to translate these questions in conversation and things like that. I hear that as a piece that would provide further support in future use of this. So I thought you made great sense. There's another question that I had that I'm trying to remember what it was. I guess I'm curious about, and you may have talked about this, some of the longer term changes. So this will end in March. This project will end in March. We don't have a clear idea of what it's going to look like in the future administering this for home visiting. But at the very least, you all have had the opportunity to utilize it and to jumpstart those conversations. That data is yours. We're not taking it away or anything. And so I'm interested in, what do you think the long-term impact of utilizing this and some of the things that were jump-started with, whether it's with your conversations with families or whether it's with conversations as staff? What do you think some long-term changes could be? Because I think that's the kind of impact that we're looking for. If we do this for a couple months, oh, hi, Chandra, welcome. You do it for a couple months, you administer, check, put it in a file, and then say, okay, that's cool. That's not the kind of change that we're looking for. So I don't know if you can identify anything that you feel as if can change, be a fundamental change in your programming based on utilizing.
I can speak to that a little bit. I've kind of been thinking about how, if we were going to do this again, how it would look, and to make it even more meaningful for our staff and for our clients. It would, I think if we did it again, now that we know what to expect, we'd maybe do it at the beginning of like a parenting group where we already had set times to see the parents. These are really difficult questions, and it's hard to go through it all at once. And so if we had like a 6-week session or something with like our parents set, so we knew we were going to see them every week for a few weeks, and we could really kind of get more in depth with the questions and maybe tie them to some parenting education or some socialization type group connection or event that would be more helpful and meaningful for the staff and the families. I can't hear you.
Sorry, Betty, I don't know what you said. I couldn't hear you either.
Thinking that's really interesting. Talk more about the 6 weeks. So you're saying have it administered over a 6-week period, or have it?
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of an idea, and I don't know. It's a lot of information and a lot of questions to do it all at once. And we did it, and the home visitors were able to get it completed. But if we wanted to take more time, maybe we could plan, and that was just an example, like a 6-week parenting group, and this would just be like a part of it, a small part of it, but we would be able to take more time and go through each question more in depth with the parents. And then we'd have all the home visitors present at the group, and maybe more people available to help interpret the questions, because everybody interprets them a little different ways. I know we still have the script, but that might be helpful.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. We'll have to think about that. Yeah. So maybe administering it in sections.
Yeah.
Looks like Kristen is typing. Can see the typing face. She says, as a program, we need to take the time to step back from the process, analyze the results, and bring it back to staff and the management team to determine what our next steps might be. And the reason, I will say, Kristen, the reason why I was connected to you in the first place by Jeannie is because she said that Lakes and Prairies is an organization and program that works with data really well. That you all you're really intentional about utilizing your data and wanting to make good meaning and good use of it. And so, because Jeannie said that, I have full faith that you will do this. I think for some other programs, the temptation to want to do everything and ooh, this sounds interesting, let's try it, is really strong without having the infrastructure and the relationships internally in place to make significant changes following what you learn from it. And so the more that we can offer that in the beginning and say, really, do you have these in place? What do you need? What is it that you need to do in order to make change in your organization? And you can't necessarily, you don't know what the results will be for any given for any given program. You don't know what the results will be. But this, do you have the infrastructure established to say, if you identify something that can be changed because of it, do you have the power then to do it and the relationships established to do it? So that's I appreciate that. And Kristen, whatever you can continue, you all do that process piece. Whatever you can share with us. I don't know what your timeline is. Obviously, we're meeting next month, but if it's even beyond then, whatever you can continue to share with us as far as this is what we've done so far. I mean, that's super helpful for us. Super, super helpful. So I would encourage you to do that. And Chandra, that was good information as far as how can this fit within the structure of your program, and more of those ideas will be good because every program is different, and so different examples of how this can be administered and the flexibility that this has. I think more and more people will then feel like, oh, this is possible and this might be good for us to do. So thanks, Kristen. I saw that too. I feel like I am good on the questions that I have so far. I'm sure I'll think of 10 as soon as I stop talking. But we will have an opportunity, and I'm not ending the meeting or anything. I'm handing it back to Betty. We'll have an opportunity to regroup in March and then do an evaluation and hopefully get more information that way. But like I said, this is so iterative. And I know Richard and Betty are really, really looking to make this as useful as it can be and as meaningful as it can be. So as our pilot programs, you are the knowledge bearers in that respect. And you have that like on the ground, hands-on experience doing this work. And so anything that comes to mind, please don't hesitate, like, please email us. Like if it's text me, I don't care what it is, but like, just contact us. Don't let the thought fly, because this is so important to us. And otherwise, you're largely working in the dark and trying to create something that like isn't as informed as it could be by those who are using it. So
I have one last question. Do you all think that this kind of data from home visiting programs will be useful to your program, your individual program, when you are making a case to funders or to legislators, to policymakers? Do you think that this is this useful? How would this, and if it is useful, how is it useful?
I think it can be useful and it will be useful. I haven't looked at the data for a while. So we have a meeting set up next Monday for our team to go over it now that we have more clarification. I see that Leah took some notes before I got here about how we interpret the data. So I could probably answer that better later. But I definitely, there's nothing bad about having more data about our families that we serve and what their needs are, and just specifically around like their lack of family and community support. That will always be helpful to us.
slight follow-up, and I know, Kristen, you're typing, so the other follow-up would be, do you feel as if the information that you are able to get from using this tool and through those conversations, do you feel as if you're using other tools that provide that information? So I know, Kristen, you're Head Start, and there's lots of programming tools available for that. And I know at LifeTrack, you have your own programming, and then you're starting to incorporate, what is the name of it?
Teachers.
Parents as Teachers. Thank you. So, I think some of the feedback that we've heard in various circles is that, oh, we already have tools that give us this information. Like, why would we need it? We don't necessarily need another one. So I'm just wondering, I'm wondering about that as well.
I don't think we have a tool that gives this, like, all of this exact information. Maybe some of it, but it's different than the other tools that we have.
Yeah, and Kristen just said, I believe it will be useful. Home visiting offers the support that families living in isolation might not otherwise receive, I think, maybe, I don't know. This data backs the support that home visiting offers. We are not asking these same questions about connecting to community and culture.
Yeah, I would agree with what she said.
Okay. Perfect. Great. Well, Betty, I'm turning it back to you.
Thank you, Etunde. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. Thank you. Richard, do you have anything to add or to ask?
No, I don't.
Okay. So, well, thank you so much for participating today. And I want to underline everything Etunde said about your feedback, how important that is to us. If you think of other things that, that we need to know about your experience with this, any suggestions that you might have, you know, because you all are, you know, you are, as Adriana said, the knowledge bearers of this, and your experience with these tools and making them as effective as possible is really important to us. So thank you so much. And our last meeting will be in March. I'm not looking at the calendar. I don't know the exact date, but you all have it all on your calendars.
March 12th.
March 12th. Okay.
Coming up soon. So, yep.
Okay.
Excited to see you all there. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.